Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Paodcast, presented by the Daily Pao. This is Pranati.
And Amit.
And we're from the dailypao.com, a Bombay-specific culture and food website. And this is our weekly podcast, the Paodcast. In this episode, we have with us Asad Lalljee, who runs Avid Learning, the cultural arm of the Essar Group. And he's going to be talking about the curation they do for the Opera House. This is an installment of The Scene in which we talk about culture in the city. So stay tuned for The Scene.
The Scene.
So in this episode, we're going to be talking to Asad Lalljee. But before we start, I should say that we don't have our third partner, Purva Mehra, with us. Purva is away on some work, so it's just Amit and me. So Asad, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So we were all very excited when the Opera House finally opened last year. And it was being renovated for how long?
The renovation started in somewhere around 2008, so it's a true labor of love.
Yeah.
And opened in October of 2016.
Right.
And the first season was very successful. And on May 15th, we debuted our second season
right.
with Bachi Karkaria's book launch.
Right. So the first event, you opened with Mami last year. Right.
That's right.
And what are some of the events that you've done?
So the opening weekend for the Royal Opera House Mumbai started with the launch of Mami, which was, I believe, on the 20th of October, followed by my official launch of Opera House, which was the event we had curated, which was an evening of operatic arias and songs by Patricia Rosario and Mark Troop, which was for our cultural stakeholders of Mumbai, which we wanted them to come into the Opera House and, kind of experience the magic of the old magic of the newly renovated Opera House. And that weekend also we had Paranjoti Choir and Parvez Java had put together an evening of Western classical music. So it was a really robust opening weekend
but
for
those were
Opera
great.
House.
I mean, those were all great events, except they were not open to the general public. So you had to be someone to sort of get invited to that. Okay. What about for Aam Janta? What was your first event that you did?
Ever since that, naturally, I agree with that point, but that was, there were a lot of people waiting to enter, but, we've kept the place open. We've encouraged people to come for walkthroughs to experience the show. But ever since then, again, Opera House is, at the moment, primarily a performing arts space that's a multi-use performing arts space that's out for rent. So it's a rental place. So, our original curation is happening slowly and steadily, but it again depends on the partner. So I remember the Italian consulate had put together an event with Melimetta, and I think that was open to all. Again, it's a smaller venue. It's a 575-seater, so it fills up fast. And we've been very fortunate that the last, all the shows to date have had overwhelming response. But we've had it open to public. Yeah. People have come in.
So the Italian consulate put together a Western classical performance.
That's right.
That was the Orchestra de Camera de Mantova.
That's right.
If I've said that correctly. But
I won't try to pronounce it, but yes, that was it.
So, I think a lot of people are also just excited to sort of see the Opera House and to sort of experience a performance there, right? So far, what has been sort of the balance between the stuff that you guys have curated as Avid and just hiring it out? Because I remember at the press conference you saying, we might even do EDM gigs here. So, what has it been like so far?
True. See, the original curation of Avid is just starting in the second season. To be honest, we did our opening weekend, and then we had to. We've started with Bachi's program, and then
which is a book launch, right?
Which is a book launch, but we plan to bring a lot of books into it. We want to bring different kind of programs in, and we're working on lots of very interesting discussions. That's Avid's forte.
Yeah.
My photography workshop, which was something we do regularly in Avid, I brought it into Opera House, so we gave photo enthusiasts an opportunity to photograph Opera House, and with a caveat that if they shoot the right images, that would be presented on Avid's on the Opera House website and used for all Opera House marketing materials. In fact, one of the our new creative that's being launched at the moment has work of one of the students from the photography workshop. So we are trying to bring people in, trying to kind of mix up the.
So this is the photography workshop that Avid conducted with David D'Souza
That's right.
on architectural photography.
That's right.
So the kids who signed up got to shoot the Opera House.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's just talk a bit about Avid here. And what you do at Avid. Now, you say workshops are your forte. So, what kind of workshops do you have do you run at Avid? And if you could just talk about the relationship between Avid and the Opera House.
Sure. Avid has been, I'll just give you a little brief on Avid to kind of put this into context. Avid has been around since 2009, and basically what it is, it's a public programming platform. It's the cultural arm of the Essar Group, and what we do is we do a mixture of talks, lectures, masterclasses, workshops and collaborations in the area of art, culture and heritage, and literature. And the idea is to present the best of Indian and international talent to people who want to learn. This is not for professional growth, this is for personal growth. And we've been very lucky that over the past year, and I've been involved since end of 2010, it's grown to about 150 programs a year. So it's also on a regular basis. We curate a lot of series. We've been part of many existing platforms like the Kalagor Arts Festival. Avid was part of it for the past 6 years. I myself and Ranjit co-curated the literature section for the last 2 years.
Ranjit Hoskote,
that's right. We collaborate with the Jaipur Lit Fest. In fact, we've been doing the curtain raiser for the JLF every year. I mean, for the past 4 years. We're going to be doing it next year also. The idea, actually, my philosophy is, I really believe in collaboration. I always joke, more logos the better, because I think for what we do, it's nice to pool in the limited resources we all have. And let's be very honest, within the arts, the resources are limited. So if we all pull them in together, your output is far bigger. With Avid, we have been creating. Workshops is something that I think we started off doing as our original, USP. So I continue doing it, probably presenting at least 2 or 3 workshops a month. My next workshop coming up is something that I'd done like 4 years ago, but I think we need to revisit it, is on Art Deco, decoding Art Deco.
Okay.
Right.
We do workshops on design thinking, on various forms of writing, photography, design thinking. And so we've got a whole roster of workshops we're planning. So generally 1 or 2 a month, and that I do at Essar House.
Okay.
The idea of curating original content for Opera House is very, very close to me, and that's something that I'm trying very hard. Also looking at a lot of collaborations. I've been doing a lot of trips on my own, on my personal trips, and going and meeting people in New York at the Met and the MoMA, and I'm going to London next week. I'm going to meet with the Opera House, trying to search for collaborations. Again, these things are not easy to do. I mean, there's always, these things are very expensive, and unless you have large budgets or you have, corporates who are going to come in and fund it, they're very difficult. But that said, I'm very optimistic. We have some very interesting ideas in the pipeline. We're going to be doing a discussion around theatre, and actually on the legacy of theatre in Mumbai. Okay. I think in July. So that's going to be an interesting program. We have we're inviting in a lot of there are a lot of people who want a platform, so we're making it possible for them to get access to it. Well, I know rates and costs are important, but we're trying to work this, work something that can work for everyone. Again, it is a rental space, so
yeah. So this theatre workshop, will it be like a day-long thing? This talk, actually.
This is, I don't know if you remember, Amit, but you may have come to one of our series called Multipolis Mumbai. It was a 9-part series that Avid had curated with Naresh Fernandez, and it was on the first Thursday of the month at Kitab Khana at Studio X. And it was looking at Bombay as a construct that supported or hampered creativity, a fabric for growth. It was wonderful because we looked at Bombay through architecture, music, food, innovation, film. With really the best people you could possibly have.
In fact, I'd come for one of those about like Bombay's music in Bombay.
Music. So that was with Ashutosh Pathak and Anish Pradhan in conversation with Naresh. So we brought that series back. You know, a lot of people always told me that it's such a lovely series. Why aren't you doing it?
Right.
So we're starting with the first one in the series in next week, actually. And it's on revitalizing the historic precincts. And, you know, with I mean, you see what's happened to Flora Fountain with Zara coming in. I mean, you see that building. It's an iconic, I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
If you look at Horniman Circle, you look at, you know, Hermes, or you look at Louis Vuitton, or even Starbucks. You know, these brands are bringing in a whole new I mean, an energy.
Well, they're restoring the building.
Exactly,
Sure.
but there's an area of brands and there's an area of culture, like the Kalagrats Festival, or you know, the Banganga Festival, or these arts platforms are actually bringing life into old historic precincts. So to examine that, we're doing a talk, and we're partnering with a wonderful foreign policy think tank called Gateway House. We work with them regularly. And so we have on that panel, we have the country head of Hermes. We have Anita Garbare, who heads up the India Heritage Society. We have Abha Narayan Lamba, who's the queen of conservation.
And responsible for the Opera House.
And responsible for the Opera House, and a friend. And, you know, as I blame her for dragging me into the Opera House, or blame her, thank her. It's my joke. But then these people will be in conversation with Sifra Lenton from the Gateway House. The next one we're doing in the same series is on theatre, and it's called Drama Queens. It's around the book of Drama Queens from VGAs that's come up. We're still pulling together the panel, but that I'm going to do at Opera House, because it, you know, Opera House has
a history of
such
theatre.
a legacy. I mean, you know, of theatre. So things like that I'm kind of working to bring there. I'm trying to think what else, because we have so many things planned all the way.
You have an actual opera coming up at
true.
the end of July.
True.
So do you want to tell us about that?
So that's with, again, the soprano who actually helped us launch Opera House, Patricia Rosario, was very generous to us.
It's called the Il Matrimonio
That's it.
Segreto.
Again, I would not attempt to pronounce it.
Or say it too many times.
So
It's the secret marriage.
The secret marriage,
essentially.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's a comical opera, apparently, and so it's Patricia and Mark are bringing down doing this opera with their students, and they've also tried to involve a lot of other educational institutions to help them with the set and the design. So it's kind of it's a nice, ambitious project, and you know, we're Patricia is a regular at the Opera House since it opened, so we're excited. I think it's in the last week of
July.
July,
Right?
yeah.
And you know, I was wondering, because you have had in just these past few months a fairly eclectic bunch of events, right? I mean, you say it is a venue for hire, so, and I think there's a great enthusiasm amongst sort of people to stage events there, because it's such a historic venue. But you've had like comedians like Kenny Sebastian and Kanan Gill, and you know, doing things there. You've even had like Hindustani classical concerts, like Amjad Ali Khan performed there. So is there sort of, when people approach the venue, I mean, is there sort of like a criteria that they have to meet or anything like that? Or
yeah, there is a criteria. See, people also approach the venue with the idea that they are coming to the Royal Opera House. They understand what it stands for. But the idea is, you know, to make it a performing arts center that welcomes all. You know, I mean, it can't be very elitist. It can't be, you know, we're only going to have French or, you know, Italian opera coming in and nothing else. I mean, this is for, I mean, the royal family of Gondal. It's okay. Going into the little bit of the history of the ownership, it's been owned. So Opera House started in the idea came up in 1908. It was inaugurated in 1911 by King George V, and finally completed in 1916. So it's completed, you know, more than 100 years. It's been owned by the royal family of Gondal since the 1950s. So obviously from opera, it went into theatre, became a movie theatre, and then closed down in the 90s. So under the patronage of the present Maharaja of Gondal, Shri Jyotendra Singh Ji, they had decided they just want to restore it and give it back to the city. But they were very clear in their brief that they wanted to restore it to its original. So there's no movie theatre, there's no screen. If you have to screen a movie, you have to bring a screen in and put it in yourself, which is, I think, kind of cool. And so they wanted to restore it, and then the idea is give it to the city. But obviously we can't, I mean, they've funded it all privately. So, I mean, you know, one does expect to just run it. I mean, you know, to run an opera house, or even just if you actually understand performing arts space, is just even to cover the air conditioning conditioning bill is astronomical.
Right.
So the idea is to make it accessible to all. We're making a very conscious effort to encourage theatre to come in here. The Epic has performed here. A couple of others are on their way, from the theatre fraternity.
Epic is Rayal
Padamsi's rediscovering the Ramayana. Yeah. Which happened, one season happened last month, the other one is next week.
Okay.
So we've had quite an eclectic mix of programs, and the idea is, yes, I think stand-up, it did brilliantly out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why I couldn't host a TEDx or a Women of the World out there either.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it is a fantastic performing arts space.
Yeah.
See, I think the Opera House has a sweet spot. See, the other venues are all 1,000 plus, and the smaller venues are 100.
Yeah.
This is 575. It's a very interesting number to fill.
And it's levels, so you can decide to choose.
Yeah. So it's
sort
over
of
3
only
levels.
open up.
Exactly.
And what's nice about it, that even though it is split over 3 levels, it's quite intimate in a way. It's not this gigantic space where sound gets lost. It's quite intimate.
I don't think there has been a single person who hasn't come in and said, wow, because it really, it's got that.
I mean, I said, you just want to be there. I mean, and then whatever you watch is
doesn't matter what the event is.
And another thing, so, the honeymoon phase shall end at some point of time. So to keep the excitement up I come up with a couple of other programs. Like, I want to infuse visual art within the space. So, where be it installations, we have, I don't know if you remember the foyer on the second floor, it's quite beautiful.
Yeah.
We have a few select areas there where I'm going to actually infuse in installations, displays, to do with, make it like a mini art gallery. In fact, the other day, we encouraged one of our partners to come and just display some of the antiques out there, which tied into the Opera House, obviously.
Okay. So who was that?
This was Animos. It's a furniture store. Yeah. So, for Bachi's event, I wanted to stage the stage. No pun intended. Since the event was in the 50s and 60s, I wanted Art Deco furniture. So I went around all these people we've worked with in the past, because I've done so many talks with them. So I found a really interesting piece there which we used for our stage. It looked really cool also. So I'd asked them, hey, you want to just come and put some stuff up there in a curated manner for 2 weeks? Go ahead. So then the next will be around, costumes, jewelry. So I'm going to invite in people. And then once as you may have seen, the outside is under construction at the moment.
Yeah.
There's a restaurant and jazz bar.
We've heard that there's
that.
going to be a cafe. There might even be a music venue opening there.
You heard right.
But can you say anything about it?
I can't give you details because I don't know how much people are sharing at the moment, but there definitely is going to be a very vibrant scene in the parking lot of the Royal Opera House, and it's going to be very beautiful. There's going to be a terraced place where we will continue having our outdoor events. There's going to be a fountain and hopefully an installation space for me to play around with. And there is a restaurant and a music
venue.
And when, do you have any idea when timelines? I know you can't talk about what they're going to be,
in the
but
next few
maybe
months. In the next few months,
Yeah.
and there's going to be cafes, and that's all. It's all in the pipeline, and there's also going to be a memorabilia store. Like you go to the Met, or you go to all these
like a museum
shops. Yeah. So that's going to be there. So we're hoping we can also guide some of the product placement in those to kind of bring out the elegance and the relevance of the Royal Opera House, and also it shouldn't be just of reminiscing with the old. There's so many interesting, if you go to the MoMA and you go to the Met stores and you see there's such interesting stuff. I mean, they're all mass produced, to be very honest. So if you can get those kind of, especially for kids, some of the learning, I bought so many of them for my niece and also my daughter, from an art, from a painting programs to even music things. So.
And you were talking about other venues. Now, we finally have an alternative to the NCPA when it comes to opera now, or to Western classical music. And so what is the kind of relationship do you guys have? I mean, is it one of it's so sort of nascent, this whole thing, that, is it like one of competition? Is it one of sort of support?
I don't think it's competition. I think there's enough for everyone. I mean, they've been very helpful to us. I mean, I've not worked with them directly, but I've worked with them in my Avid avatar quite well, and I have friends who work there. But they were very helpful to the family when they were in the phases of construction were happening. They've been collaborative and supportive. I mean, I don't think it's competition. I mean, it
could be healthy competition, right?
It's
We
wonderful.
just don't have enough venues.
I'd love to joke and say, send me what you don't want. But no, they have 1,000+ seater. We are 500. I mean, the sound, these are different. You can't compare them. Maybe somebody came to me the other and said, can you pitch me against NCP? I said, no, I can't. Please go ahead and go to NCPA. They're two different, it's like apples and oranges. NCPA is I've grown up going to NCPA as a child. I live pretty close by. I say I live next to the Lincoln. My analogy is I live next to the Lincoln Center of New York. If I have to tell people, effectively that's what it is for us. It's a 5-stage, of different sizes. It's been around forever, and it's iconic. We're a 1-stage 500-seater now. I'm like the poor cousin 3 times removed.
Quite hardly.
It's just great that there is this gorgeous venue, and we're seeing a proliferation of various kinds of culture venues in the city.
Sure.
From really tiny.
From like one-room spaces that are in apartments that are just being rented, like in like buildings that are being used for...
Or to, people just loaning their apartments out to, like this house concert series that you went for.
So it's a very exciting time, like you said, for culture.
To the Opera House.
In the city.
And you were saying how exponentially the culture scene has grown.
I'm when we start... you just open a newspaper, you look at the Mumbai Mirror, you look at the Midday, and you look at listings for the day, which they've all
look at the Daily Pals.
The Daily Pals.
You don't have to go
just
anywhere else.
But you just look at the amount of listings, and every day when I open the paper, I can go to at least 4 things I think is cool. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to go to all 4, or even 1 sometimes, because I have 150 programs of my own that I need to show up at. But there's so much cool, interesting stuff happening, and what I think is even cool is, Bombay is not. Bombay is Bombay. It's like, but I like the fact that spaces are opening up. Alternate spaces are opening up. They're pushing different conversations, because you're also talking to different stakeholders, different groups, different ages, different ecosystems, for lack of better words. I think it's very exciting. I think with Opera House opening up, a lot of people are hoping that that's going to kind of revitalize even the Opera House district. There's a lovely restaurant called Canto, which has opened up right next to. I'm very excited to have somewhere to go.
It used to be Liquid Lounge.
No, it used to be Karma.
The Liquid Lounge.
So in fact, it just happened to be that I stumbled into it after the one of our events, and I was so happy to sign a place there, and it's probably the only non-vegetarian place in
all
blocks.
You have to go to with
Tiwari Brothers.
But Tiwari Brothers is also wonderful. I get my lassi from there.
You talked about, like, when I asked you about the stuff that you like, whether there's any criteria, is there anything that you won't do?
I think there are certain things we draw the line on, but I don't think anybody's approached us for that. People have, it's a rental space, so people have approached us to do
Sangeet, weddings.
Yeah, they have approached, but then we have a way around that. We invite them in, but then it doesn't quite work out at the end. So
you just quote, but I don't think even quoting an obnoxious sort of.
The royal family is very, very keen that it's used for the arts and culture and for the city, and so there's, and also we're in early days. We only completed one season, and we opened October. This is in June,
right?
So there's not much time. Once you finish one calendar year, when you go to the second and the third, and that's when it actually becomes vibrant. Right now, it's also a lot of people are still wanting to come test it out. Can I do one show and see how it works for mine? Because it is a different setup. It's a historic heritage, over 100-year-old building with state-of-the-art technology. So people are not quite sure how to even handle that. When you come, and I don't know if you've been backstage. It's wonderful. It's got a huge, and our tech, what we are supplying with it is actually quite state-of-the-art.
Okay.
For projection, for performing arts.
Yeah. So I think that's it for this episode. Thanks, Asad, for being on the show.
Thanks so much for being here. We've been sort of planning this for a while, so it's good that it's finally happened.
Thank you for having me, and hopefully I'll see you all at the Opera House very soon, and at many of the Avid programs.
And we'll be back next week. For more on what's happening in the city, read thedailypao.com. Also subscribe to our newsletter on the website. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're The Daily Pao. And you can find this podcast every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer, and on thedailypao.com.
The Paodcast is an IVM production, and if you like our show, you should check out Drinks and Destinations with Rojita and Samira. It's a handy guide to the world of wines, spirits, and travels around the world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out
IVM Podcasts
to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.